Singapore's central bank is committing up to 150 million Singapore dollars to fund projects that use cutting-edge technologies. It'll be spread over 3 years under the Financial Sector Technology and Innovation Scheme. The renewed scheme looks to spur adoption of sustainable fintech solutions, with firms able to apply for funding under a new environmental, social and governance track. The Monetary Authority of Singapore will also release funds for venture capitals, seen as important to nurturing startups and to support trials of fintech solutions based on emerging technologies.
And for more on this, we're joined by Professor Sumit Agarwal. He's Managing Director of the NUS Sustainable and Green Finance Institute, as well as Professor of Finance, Real Estate and Economics at the NUS Business School. Professor, let's start. MS's goal with the renewed scheme is to advance purposeful financial innovation. What would that entail?
As you mentioned in your opening, now this is the third round. And so now, instead of going for the low-hanging fruit, they're going for the bigger issues and more important issues, advancing ESG, small firms, and actually bringing AI into the game. Now, these are tougher things to handle. We will see how this plays out, but this is a very important step for them to take.
Now, with the new ESG track, that's quite interesting. But how far will development of ESG data, reporting and analytics help minimize greenwashing in the fintech industry?
That's a very important question. Greenwashing is a very old phenomena since we started talking about ESG. The biggest problem is data definition and disclosure in ESG. And this effort actually goes a long way trying to address the data part. We still have to think about definition and disclosure, and those are harder nuts to crack. But let's get the data issue resolved. So I think to your point, yes, we will make a significant improvement in thinking about greenwashing, but there's a lot more ground to cover.
Professor, let's return to what you mentioned earlier. You talk about the low-hanging fruit now pretty much picked. We're looking at the higher-hanging fruit, ESG and small firms. So the scheme is to push firms, especially small firms, to adopt AI and data analytics. Generally, big firms have the resources to do these things without great cost to themselves. Less so for smaller firms. How to persuade them that this will benefit them despite perhaps short-term pain?
Yeah, in the long term, I think the question will be, can they improve efficiency and productivity by relying more on technology? Now, firms are reluctant because small firms are very used to doing things their own way. You go to small operations, they don't like change because change is disruptive and there's a huge learning cost for them. Now, what the goal is to say, look, we'll provide you part of the funding to reach that goal. And I think that may persuade a bunch of the smaller firms. I don't think this will convert everybody or a lot of them, but at least it will move the needle in that direction.
Help us to understand this new initiative. In order to receive funding, firms will need to develop their own fintech talent pool. Are you seeing firms reluctant to develop their own talent pool? How are they doing?
So there is a demand and supply question here. So clearly there is a shortage of supply of talent pool, which is true around the world, because we have moved so aggressively in this direction of adopting technology and actually bringing fintech to the world. So that has to be relaxed. Singapore is doing that through providing lots of grants and funding to the educational sector. But also on the demand side, especially the small businesses have been reluctant because the talent they want to acquire is quite expensive. So we will see that with this funding that may allow firms to adopt technology and be able to hire that talent that they need to take the next step.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us this evening, Professor Sumit Agarwal from NUS.